Hello everyone, I'm here to give my very important opinion on Oyasumi Punpun. Since most of my audience is American, I think going with a synopsis of Goodnight Punpun would be just a little bit inefficient compared to just comparing it to a more well-known piece of classic American literature. One about the idea of nature versus nurture, about chaos versus law, one that raises questions about whether we as humans can be born evil, or if evil is even real. That's right, I'm talking about Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I know that might seem crazy, but after this video, you will understand. I firmly believe God put onto this world the same exact idea into two creators across the globe as a way to bridge our cultures. Anyways, Oyasumi Punpun by Inio Asano follows the life of 11-year-old Onodera Punpun. It's a 147 chapter long coming of age story where we follow Punpun into adulthood and through the multiple, mostly traumatic events in his life. And as you can see from the picture, this is also a pretty wacky, pretty silly, kinda out there manga. Despite that though, it is in fact a seinen drama manga. It's way more than that, but I'm no babysitter. You're gonna have to find that out on yourself. I'm not here to give you the good night Punpun full story explain. We don't do that shit here. Plus, it's not like we're ever gonna get an anime adaptation to make it more accessible, considering it's been almost a decade and we've heard nothing about any anime adaptation being in the works. And rightfully so, unless they let me direct it, because my ideas and awesome meta direction of the manga are just vastly superior to what any other director is even capable of even hoping to produce right now. Only at Studio Y can anime be saved. However, with a whopping total of one amateur artist, that will be a task for not this week. Anyways, this is an easy must-read manga. I myself have read it 3 times over, even though it's not really even among my favorites, but that's mostly for preference reasons. I still enjoy it quite a bit, but I've mellowed out on it over the years. It still has a Grega seal of approval, so enough said. I recommend it to basically everyone, since unless you're a real shonen meathead or don't like depressing stories, this will offer at least some entertainment value, even if it's just from the art. Also, it will let you tap into more manga discussion, which, as we all know, is always fun. With that being said, this review is not spoiler free, so newbies, get the fuck out! Not like I did an amazing job of selling it to you or whatever, but this isn't a recommendation video, it's a review. Take your ass back to 7 obscure manga recommendations. We talk about key plot points and give actual insight in this bitch. Is what I would say, but realistically, it's a lot of work to cover everything I have to say, unless I make a 2-hour long commentary video. But I'm not getting paid for that yet, so that'll be farther down the line. So, in a brief summary of the story, we follow Punpun through his school antics until he graduates, and also he falls in love with a seemingly nice and alright girl named Aiko Tanaka, and then Punpun meets a very nice but also not very nice but at least more mentally well-adjusted girl named Nanjo Sachi. They do the thing for a bit until they don't, but then he meets up with Aiko again, and they finally get to chill and have fun until they don't. Anyways, I'm supposed to be reviewing, so time to stop some writing, guys. Sorry for that, sorry for all that. Basically, the only way of formatting information that I know is through an essay, so I'm about to start structuring. To preface just about everything else in this video, the theme of Goodnight Punpun is about bettering yourself and trying to find happiness no matter what, and also that people help people. It's a pretty positive take compared to what most of the loser quote-unquote fans of the manga will tell you. In fact, you can come up with a fair amount of positive takeaways in the story, but being happy and looking forward to what life has to offer isn't cool with the kids nowadays, I guess. Everybody's always talking about this manga like it's a real life ring tape. Wow, Oyasumi Punpun will make you depressed after reading this. This is the most nihilistic and dark evil manga. You will kill yourself after reading this. Jesus Christ. I always hate when manga like Berserk, Flowers of Evil, and Punpun are treated like this because yes, while they can be pretty dark and depressing at times, they're more uplifting than anything really. The real nihilism is a crushing reality that media literacy is dying. The point of these stories is that even through all the bullshit, through all the pain, through all the bleakness and despair the main characters go through, they still make it through to the end and find the light at the end of the tunnel. There is a beauty to this world that you all refuse to see. But I guess that just goes to show that I am the new prophet. I'm here to spread the word of love and joy, something that some of you just have never experienced like I have. Anyways, All of this is encapsulated in the many stories that make up Goodnight Punpun, including Uncle Yurichi's storyline, the mom storyline, second Shimizu storyline, the Pegasus Cult storyline, and the most long-winded one of them all, Punpun and Nanjo/Aiko storyline. These all deserve videos of their own, but who knows if that's ever gonna happen. I see the manga as two halves. When Punpun reaches traditional adulthood, that being 18 years old, and before that, the first 7 years old chapters of Oyasumi Punpun focus on the people around Punpun a lot more than the second half. Tonally, it's super wild and jarring because we balance the general positivity Punpun has as a kid with the mounting trauma that is attacking him and his surroundings. The second half is like 80% Punpun and about 20% Pegasus Cult / second Shimizu, because the stories like become intertwined. This half is a lot less frenetic. After meeting Nanjo, Punpun's life takes its first upward turn in a fair amount of time. We also dive a lot more into the Pegasus Cult. I didn't get the Pegasus Cult until my most recent read through, where I figured they're supposed to contrast the main cast, since they're a group of people who find happiness with each other despite all their troubles. Also, all the weirdness and gag aspect of Punpun gets pushed onto them as the main storyline becomes more grounded. The stakes go up and people we seriously care about are going through serious things that we are forced to care about. So what do I think about the plot of Goodnight Punpun? It's pretty good. Some would say the pacing might be a bit slow and that some side stories might drag on for too long, specifically the Pegasus storyline. I'm inclined to agree, but as a fan of slow stories, I don't really mind all that much. It all ties in beautifully with the themes of the story anyways. You can get a general sense of where the story wants to go most of the time, if you're paying attention, but all the moment-to-moment stuff will always throw you for a loop. I'm not usually a fan of foreshadowing because I don't really care, but damn, this manga have a lot more than I thought. Almost every Aiko interaction foreshadows her fate. It goes to show just how much of a concise character she is, compared to the super sprawling and never-ending wonder that is Punpun anyways. It's also a testament to the dialogue. The first half of the story is more visually focused because Punpun begins to monologue a lot more in the second half. Punpun is up there in manga/anime with good dialogue, but gets beat by a lot of my personal goats like the works of Fujimoto, Steve Hayashida, and Hiroaki Samura. I think the only problem with that Oyasumi Punpun's dialogue can be a little corny and edgy, but I don't think Asano really wanted it to be. I think it's a bit worse in his newer work, even though I like the dialogue in that manga more, but it can be a problem here. Overall though, it's still good and there are plenty of fun quotes and lines. This is the type of shit you see in all the alt girls' Twitter bios, you know? So you know it's good. It can also be pretty wacky and comedic, but most people don't care about that. But that's a topic for another day. Punpun's biggest strength narratively is its structure, and how we only see the very important excerpts of Punpun's life. Sounds like a no-do, right? Or maybe you might disagree because there can be a lot of slice of lifey stuff, but when you really sit down and think about it, something I know some of you don't do, you realize it's all served a purpose. On the other hand, the side plots bear no real relevance to Punpun, but they do to Punpun, you know? The side plots are woven in effortlessly and always can accentuate the main story. I feel like there's a sense of cohesion that most people don't really talk about because the manga can be very expressive and out there, but it never really tackled a wholly new subject. It's all about troubled people with troubled lives trying to make something out of themselves, and the part that wraps it all up in a neat bow, the part that makes me feel something, the part that defrosted the Arctic Circle caught my heart. The ending. Goodnight Punpun's ending is one of the first endings in any story that I liked. Every single time I get to look at the final panel with Punpun, I just get filled with an overwhelming sense of finality and hope. So much power packed into it. Literally no better way the series could have ended. It really shows the importance of having someone there for you. Now onto the real juice. So I'm only gonna cover the 3 major recurring characters because why not? And also, I'm starting to see why people make separate videos on individual topics. I'm gonna just play the victim and blame all the slop video essays I consume that are 90% summarization and 10% actual input for why my scripts are not Pulitzer Prize worthy. It's totally not just me being lazy as fuck. Anyway, the 3 characters that I'm gonna talk about are Punpun, Aiko, and Nanjo. I think I might make a video on the Pegasus Cult and also just some other stuff in general about Punpun because I realized something about how this manga is viewed by the mainstream media versus how I view it. But that will be for when I have an actual audience to yell at first. So, first things first, Punpun. Punpun is our guy. He's for the people. He just can't stop goofing around throughout the entire story. Punpun is a shy, introverted, and kind but also an arrogant, selfish, and deeply disturbed person. He was made specifically infused with a chemical that makes you say, wow, he's just like me. Because he can be very relatable, but also kinda not. Anyways, The most striking thing about Punpun is the design. Instead of being drawn as a normal anime human, he and the rest of the Punpuns are drawn as these bird doodle things. They're all a very dysfunctional family, so it's all very deceptive. You know, it's like ironic, you know? I think a more accurate portrayal would be this. But that's just me, I don't know. As long as you understand the concept of self-sabotage, 90% of Punpun's character will make sense. He's very childlike in the sense that his ideals and general demeanor are that of a shy child, but deeply twisted. Punpun has a fair bit of monologue, but his own visual characterization does a lot. As the story goes on, we see him morph into all different kinds of things to reflect his unstable emotional state. To be honest, I'm surprised his faces aren't used more often. His character arc is the epitome of the phrase, when you hit rock bottom, the only way to go is up. And we watched that descent for a brief 146 chapters. But as I said before, the final chapter gives Punpun the ending we were waiting for. Punpun's relationships are not very healthy, to say the least. His relationship with his parents is deeply strained. He's distant from his uncle, his aunt is and his school friends aren't very close. Nanjo and her squad are the first people to really care about Punpun. Also, Mr. Shishido is like the most underrated person ever, and the fact that he's one of the few people Punpun cares about despite their relationship being so understated is that's real ass writing, man. And last but not least, Aiko. Holy fucking shit, it's Aiko. Aiko Tanaka is one of the most important characters in the story, but she has a relatively small amount of screen time up until the end, where she is finally put into focus. Aiko is Punpun's ideal girl, and although we know she has her fair share of troubles, she is someone who is seen as almost angelic. But we know she isn't, and all that isn't is put into the forefront in the final arc, where we see just how shitty of a life she lives, and how that affects her perception of love. Too long didn't read, she is the poster girl for emos. You will be advised, dearly advised. I'm talking to people with her as their profile picture, especially if they're being /serious and not goofy. However, that goofiness is strictly visual because in her personal life, she cannot stop having not fun. Her entire character is pretty sad. She's like a representation of how you feel when your favorite fast food restaurant moves their jungle gym, you know? As I said before, her character is very concise. In fact, her life in general is pretty small. The primary source of all her issues is just her mother. Aiko's entire arc is focused on the fulfillment of her unsatisfactory life, and the very bad way Punpun deals with it. There isn't a whole lot to say without dragging this video on for a lot longer. This was supposed to be a 6-minute review. Punpun is no certified psychologist, and all their emotional moments tend to not go very well. I think their relationship caught out a lot of people, and I think that's funny. But most of the people are probably just gonna say relatable and move on, which is not so funny. Yeah, so anyways, Aiko dies because it's not worth living until Dark Souls comes out, I guess. And the point of her character arc is that being a genuine person and forming meaningful relationships is very important, I think, onto Nanjo. Nanjo is Punpun's savior because even though she is a troubled person, she at least has a somewhat competent support circle and real goals and passions. She is a grim reminder to people with no hobbies that they're on life support until they realize how boring their lives are and end up killing themselves. Nanjo used to be my favorite character, but over time I just kinda mellowed out on her. No real reason why. It was nice seeing someone genuinely try and be friends with Punpun. Nanjo is at heart the kindest person in the story. Her hysteria makes her seem otherwise, but she's the only one who actually cares and sticks with people. She's almost like a role model in the story for how much more she has together than everyone else. Despite her troubles, she still marches forward, and that determination is what sets the foundation for everything to get better. She's kinda like a stand-in for the audience, since she tells Punpun the things a lot of us would like to say. Plus, she's like the least troubled person out of the cast, so she's a fair bit easier to relate to. When you say you relate to Nanjo, you won't get fishy looks the same way a Punpun or Aiko can will. She is primarily defined by her relationship with Punpun, just like Aiko, which makes sense as they're both a main part of the storyline. But unlike Aiko, Nanjo can exist without Punpun, happily at that. Regardless though, my favorite character is probably Seki because he recognizes how cringe a lot of this depressed psychology talk is. I will talk about him here, but I think he deserves his own video alongside Pegasus Cole. Not much to say here. Actually, there is a lot to say here, but the pages I've been showing you should have said most of it. The best way to go into Oyasumi Punpun is to treat it like a dark gag manga that has a surprising amount of character drama. You could theorize that the Punpun family is shown as bird doodles to offset their dysfunctionality so people don't forgive them for what they do since they are supposed to be a rather nice looking group of people. But in reality, Asano probably just thought it would be funny to have these doodle people be really ducked up. On a more serious note, it's nice to see Asano's art go from good to a pillar of the medium. He has this mixed media style that blends super well. It looks so good. The digital effects do a lot, and it's something that should be done more in the manga industry. It makes him stand out among the rest of the business, even more so than his general design conventions already do. Plus, there's a sense of bleakness to the manga that the black and white really adds to. Unlike most manga, I picture this one in black and white, no color at all. I feel like adding color will fundamentally change the story, perfectly exemplified by this one picture. Also, the manga is washed in this gray, which may or may not be just because my iPad is at low brightness when I read it, but it's really good. It just adds a lot of atmosphere and tone. I knew Asano was a gang manga artist, but it wasn't until this read through that I realized how much that blended into everything about the story, characters, and art. The only other piece of insight I'm not lazy enough to talk about is the fact that all the lines that appear are probably supposed to be like silver linings. They can represent some kind of hope as they disappear when things get particularly dark, with no nice outcome in sight. Also, my personal fan theory is that people Punpun doesn't understand or like are drawn as ugly and weird. Kinda like how Greg Heffley draws everyone attractive with his own face model. Really makes you think. This is mostly in the first half though. So, this was indeed the ultimate Goodnight Punpun review, not scuffed at all. It was just more proof that I am worthy my professional manga / anime fan license. This scene can and will only be revoked the second my hatred for the Chainsaw Man anime is stilled by even one bit. And you too can receive this card by hitting and smashing, destroying, maiming, torturing, simmering, and boiling shit and disemboweling that subscribe button. And to all the people that want this manga to have an anime adaptation, Oyasumi Punpun will probably never get an anime adaptation due to its nature and also Asano's wishes. But if it did, just know that it will be complete horseshit unless they let me on board. I would make it a glorious mixed media cinematic and unique anime with awesome sound design. So yeah, you're just gonna have to read it for the remainder of time.